Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the world of House of David? Released on February 27, 2025, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. House of David hit screens on February 27, 2025, and instantly captivated audiences with its daring blend of biblical history, personal drama, and breathtaking cinematography. From the very first scene, the movie transports viewers back to the ancient world of Israel, bringing to life one of the most iconic figures in history, King David. However, this isn't just a tale of biblical triumphs and divine interventions. House of David weaves together an intricate tapestry of character development, emotional depth, and thematic exploration that sets it apart from other adaptations of the legendary king's story. What makes House of David so extraordinary isn't just its ambitious scope or its painstakingly accurate historical details. It's the way the film humanizes a figure who has long been viewed through the lens of legend and divine favor. Directed by Jon Erwin, known for his work on faith-based films, the movie tackles the grand narrative of David's life with nuance, focusing not just on his rise to power but on the deeply personal journey that shaped him. Erwin's ability to merge spectacle with intimate moments of self-reflection and struggle is what makes House of David a film worth exploring. The film opens in the fields of Bethlehem, where we meet a young David, played with remarkable depth by Iskander, leading a simple life as a shepherd. The opening scenes set the stage for the contrasts that will define David's journey, his humble beginnings versus the monumental destiny awaiting him. From the first frame, the audience is invited into David's world, one where faith and destiny are inextricably linked. The cinematography, a blend of vast landscapes and intimate close-ups, immediately immerses the viewer in the stark beauty of the ancient world. Through this lens, David's connection to the land and his animals feels almost spiritual, grounding him in a life that will soon be upended by forces beyond his control. The first twist of the film comes when the prophet Samuel, portrayed by the legendary Stephen Lang, arrives to anoint David as the future king of Israel. This moment sets the stage for the film's exploration of faith, prophecy, and the divine. Samuel's announcement is not just a personal turning point for David, but also a pivotal moment for the entire nation of Israel, which is on the brink of war with the Philistines. The prophecy delivered by Samuel echoes through the ages, not only as a call to David but also as a reminder that great power often comes with great responsibility and a price. But what sets House of David apart from other retellings of this story is the way it focuses on the emotional toll this prophecy takes on David. He is not an eager young hero rushing toward his destiny, but a reluctant figure, burdened by the weight of expectations and the uncertainty of what lies ahead. The portrayal of David's inner conflict is one of the film's most compelling aspects, as it invites the audience to empathize with a man who is essentially being forced into greatness, despite his doubts and fears. The film doesn't waste time before leading us into one of the most famous chapters of David's life, the battle with Goliath. This iconic scene is not just an action sequence, though. It's a reflection of David's faith and courage. In the film, the tension builds slowly, allowing the audience to experience David's emotions, his fear, and the unshakable confidence he has in his faith. The battle itself is a stunning sequence of carefully choreographed action, but it's the emotional build-up that makes it so powerful. The film doesn't just present David as a slayer of giants. It gives us a young man confronting his own doubts and fears, making the victory feel not just physical but spiritual. As David takes on the mantle of leadership, the story delves deeper into the complexities of his character. The relationship between David and King Saul, played with intense nuance by Suliman, is one of the film's most gripping dynamics. Saul is not simply a jealous king. He's a man on the edge of madness, grappling with his own insecurities and fears of losing power. The tension between the two characters simmers throughout the film, with Saul's growing paranoia serving as a counterpoint to David's rising stature. The performances here are nothing short of extraordinary, with Suliman's portrayal of Saul as a man slowly losing his grip on reality and Iskander's portrayal of David as a king in the making who must grapple with his own inner demons. Their interactions are fraught with love, resentment, and fear, making each encounter between the two characters pulse with emotional intensity. The complexity of David's character is further deepened through his relationships with those closest to him. The romance between David and Michal, his wife, is portrayed with tenderness and pain. The film doesn't shy away from the difficulties they face, especially as David's duties as king and warrior increasingly take him away from the woman he loves. Their moments of connection, silent glances, fleeting touches, and the unspoken understanding between them are some of the most poignant moments of the film. And yet, even in the midst of their love, the weight of David's destiny looms large. This relationship is explored with depth, showing how love can both strengthen and tear apart the lives of those caught up in the whirlwind of power and ambition. As the story progresses, the film doesn't shy away from David's flaws. In a daring move, it brings to the forefront his affair with Bathsheba, a pivotal moment in the biblical narrative that is handled with both sensitivity and honesty. The consequences of this affair ripple through the story, affecting not just David's personal life, but the nation he has sworn to lead. The film doesn't attempt to gloss over David's sins, but instead explores how his actions, both noble and flawed, make him a fully realized character. One who is, above all else, human. This aspect of the film resonates with modern audiences, as it shows how even the greatest leaders are flawed and must reckon with the consequences of their choices. The third act of the film is where David's journey truly comes to a head. As he is forced to confront the enormity of his responsibilities and the consequences of his actions, we see a man who has risen from humble shepherd to powerful king. But at what cost? The film is unflinching in its portrayal of the emotional and moral toll that leadership takes on David. His relationship with God is tested, his loyalty to his people questioned, and his own sense of self-honor challenged. It's in these moments of personal crisis that the film truly shines, revealing a man who, despite his flaws and failures, remains devoted to a higher cause, a cause that ultimately demands sacrifice. The film's visuals are a feast for the eyes, with sweeping shots of ancient landscapes, sprawling battlefields, and intimate, emotionally charged moments between characters. The cinematography brings the biblical world to life, with its grandiose settings often juxtaposed against the personal, quiet moments of reflection. The use of light and shadow adds a layer of depth to the film, giving each scene a sense of weight and purpose. Whether it's the golden hues of the sun setting over the fields or the stark darkness of a night filled with tension, the visual style of the film serves to reinforce its themes of faith, destiny, and internal struggle. Ultimately, House of David is more than just a retelling of a biblical story. It's a deep exploration of what it means to be human. It grapples with questions of faith, destiny, power, and the cost of greatness. The performances are powerful, the story rich with emotional depth, and the visuals strikingly beautiful. The film's exploration of David's journey from shepherd to king is not just an epic tale of victory, but a reflection on the burdens of leadership, the complexity of human nature, and the search for redemption. It's a film that invites viewers to reflect on their own lives, their choices, and the legacies they leave behind. Since its release, House of David has become a cultural phenomenon, sparking discussions about its themes, its portrayal of biblical characters, and its relevance to contemporary issues. It's a film that doesn't just entertain. It challenges viewers, offering a complex, thought-provoking narrative that resonates long after the credits roll. Whether you're a fan of biblical epics, historical dramas, or films that explore the human condition, House of David is a cinematic experience that demands attention. The first half of House of David grips its audience from the moment the screen flickers to life, pulling them into a world steeped in history, prophecy, and fate. As the film opens, we find David, a young shepherd in the rolling fields of Bethlehem, tending to his father's flocks. He's a boy living a simple, humble life, his days marked by the quiet rhythms of nature. But from the very first moments, something about David's solitude feels heavy, as though his life, while peaceful, is destined for something far grander. The vastness of the open skies over him feels symbolic, as if the weight of his future is already looming in the distance. David's life of simplicity quickly collides with the grandeur of fate when the prophet Samuel, portrayed with quiet authority by Stephen Lang, arrives in Bethlehem. Samuel's presence is no mere coincidence. The prophet is on a divine mission, one that will forever alter the course of David's life and the future of Israel. With a sense of gravitas that only a man burdened with divine knowledge can carry, Samuel makes his way to David's home. It's clear from the start that Samuel is a man at odds with the kingship of Israel, seeing the monarchy as something that has deviated from divine purpose. He arrives to deliver a message, anointing David as the future king of Israel. But what sets this scene apart isn't just the weight of prophecy. It's the sheer disbelief that courses through David's veins as he hears those words. The camera lingers on David's face as Samuel speaks the prophecy. A young man in shock, overwhelmed by the gravity of the words. The filmmakers don't rush through this pivotal moment, instead allowing it to hang in the air, letting us feel the tension and confusion that David must experience. The very idea of being chosen as king seems absurd to David, a shepherd with no ambitions for power. The first emotional stakes of the film are set here. David is not eager for greatness, nor is he a man hungry for power. Instead, he's thrust into the role of a leader, a position he feels unequipped to handle. This reluctance, this inner conflict, will drive much of his journey, and it sets the tone for the film's exploration of destiny and choice. As the tension between prophecy and personal reluctance builds, the narrative takes a sharp turn. News of a great threat looms over Israel. The Philistines have gathered their forces and threatened to invade the land. This is no ordinary military conflict. This is a battle for survival, one that threatens the very existence of the Israelite kingdom. Saul, the current king of Israel, played with a tense, volatile energy by Suliman, is already struggling to maintain control over his people. His rule is plagued by paranoia, fear, and a growing sense of insecurity. Despite his outward displays of strength, Saul is a man consumed by doubt. The contrast between Saul's unease and David's quiet faith is stark and only grows more pronounced as the narrative unfolds. David, meanwhile, is caught between the life he knows and the future Samuel has promised. His days as a shepherd are soon interrupted by his father, who sends him to the battlefield with provisions for his older brothers, who serve in Saul's army. This is a turning point in the film, as it marks the moment when David first steps into the wider world, leaving behind his quiet life for the harsh realities of war. The journey to the battlefield itself is filled with tension. The once peaceful landscape of Bethlehem gives way to the looming threat of the Philistine forces, and David's innocence is tested when he witnesses the towering figure of Goliath. The introduction of Goliath, portrayed by Martin Ford in a towering, imposing performance, is a masterstroke. The Philistine giant is a force of nature, a creature of brute strength and ruthless confidence. His mere presence sends waves of fear throughout the Israelite camp, and it's impossible to ignore the sense of dread that builds as the film introduces him. Goliath's taunts to the Israelite army are delivered with chilling calm, each word designed to break the spirit of those who would challenge him. And yet, even in the face of such overwhelming fear, David's response is one of quiet defiance. The pivotal moment comes when David steps forward, not as a warrior, but as a young man who sees beyond the physical might of Goliath. With a slingshot and a stone, David challenges the giant, putting his faith in God and his own courage. This isn't the brash confidence of a hero looking for glory. Instead, it's the calm determination of someone who believes that what he's doing is ordained. In this moment, the tension between David's destiny and his reluctance to embrace it reaches its peak. The battle with Goliath unfolds with incredible pacing. The film builds suspense as David faces off against the giant, the air thick with anticipation. The music swells as David takes his position, the giant taunting him with a sneer, confident that his victory is inevitable. The confrontation is quick, but it's charged with emotion and meaning. The iconic moment of David releasing the stone is framed with perfect precision, the camera following the trajectory of the stone as it strikes Goliath in the forehead. The giant's fall is not just physical but symbolic. the defeat of a mighty enemy through faith and cleverness rather than sheer force. The Israelites are victorious, but the victory is bittersweet, as David's growing fame begins to stir the jealousy of King Saul. As the film progresses, David's newfound role as a hero begins to unsettle the already fragile balance within the Israelite kingdom. Saul, once a proud and confident king, now finds himself increasingly threatened by David's success. Saul's jealousy is palpable, and his paranoia only deepens as he watches David's popularity grow. The tension between the two men becomes increasingly evident, and Saul's growing resentment is mirrored by David's internal conflict. David has always wanted to remain humble, to live simply, but the rise to power is inevitable. Saul's violent outbursts and attempts to sabotage David's reputation are a harbinger of the struggles to come. The film doesn't shy away from depicting the psychological toll this takes on David. He is no longer just a shepherd. He's a man caught between two worlds. One world is the innocent life he once knew, where his relationship with God was direct and pure, and the other is the brutal reality of political intrigue, jealousy, and the demands of leadership. David is thrust into a world of power struggles and war, a world where every move is watched, and every decision carries consequences. The second major twist arrives when Saul, increasingly paranoid and desperate to maintain control, begins to see David not as a future king but as a threat. Saul's jealousy leads him to take drastic measures, and his attempts to eliminate David mark the beginning of a long and tragic rift between the two. In these moments, the film explores the complexity of Saul's character. He is not simply the villain of the story. He is a man who has been consumed by his own fears, a king whose insecurity and inability to reconcile his divine purpose with his personal failures make him a tragic figure. The scenes of Saul and David together are filled with a quiet intensity, as both men wrestle with their own burdens. David with the weight of his destiny and Saul with the crumbling of his power. David's escape from Saul's attempts on his life is a tense, thrilling sequence. The stakes couldn't be higher as David is forced to flee, leaving behind the life he once knew, all the while haunted by the looming presence of Saul. David's flight marks a new chapter in his journey, one that will take him further away from his roots and deeper into a world of violence, deception, and survival. By the end of the first half of House of David, the film has set in motion a series of emotional, psychological, and political conflicts that will shape the rest of David's journey. The boy who once tended sheep is now a fugitive, hunted by the very king he served, while a divine purpose continues to unfold. The early conflicts, David's internal struggle with his destiny, Saul's growing paranoia, the battle with Goliath, create a sense of mounting tension that propels the film forward. Every choice David makes feels monumental. Every action he takes ripples through the lives of those around him, setting the stage for the epic journey that lies ahead. As the second half of House of David unfolds, the film plunges deeper into the heart of its emotional and political drama, raising the stakes and pulling its characters into a spiraling vortex of conflict, ambition, and divine purpose. The world of shepherds, fields, and prophecies that David once knew seems far behind him as he finds himself on the run, hunted by the very man who once mentored him. With every step, David is forced to confront not just the threat of death, but the emotional toll of his destiny. The weight of his growing fame, the jealousy of King Saul, and the responsibility of being Israel's chosen future king are heavy burdens, and David's journey is as much spiritual as it is physical. David's flight from Saul is not just a retreat into the wilderness. It is an immersion into a world of peril and isolation. In the wilderness, he is no longer the boy who faced down Goliath with nothing but a slingshot. He is a fugitive, his every move tracked by Saul's soldiers. The landscapes in these scenes are vast and unforgiving, mirroring David's emotional state. A young man without a clear path, caught between divine prophecy and personal survival. The film's cinematography amplifies the vastness of the terrain, using sweeping shots of barren deserts and craggy hillsides to symbolize David's internal journey, while close-up shots intensify the isolation and loneliness he feels. One of the most profound moments in the second half occurs when David comes across a group of outcasts and misfits living in the cave of Adullam. These men, rejected by society and out of favor with the king, find in David a leader. As they gather around him, it's clear that David is not just anointed for greatness in the eyes of God, but that his ability to inspire loyalty, even among the broken, will be one of the defining aspects of his leadership. David, now the leader of a ragtag group of outlaws, begins to realize the weight of his role, not just as a king-to-be, but as a figure of hope for those who have been cast aside. His ability to gather followers is not rooted in ambition, but in the integrity he brings to his every action. His men come to revere him not for his power, but for his unwavering faith and his inherent goodness, a stark contrast to the paranoid, insecure Saul. This band of men is an important turning point for David, and it sets the stage for some of the most emotionally charged moments of the second half. It is in this wilderness that David finds some of the deepest friendships of his life, loyal men like Joab, played by a fiercely charismatic actor, and Abiathar, a priest who follows David and becomes his spiritual advisor. Together, they forge bonds that will later prove pivotal to David's ascent to the throne. These moments in the cave, filled with quiet conversation, shared meals, and unspoken understandings, provide some of the film's most intimate and poignant scenes. The relationship between David and his men mirrors his evolving understanding of leadership. It's not about power or authority, but about serving others, offering them a vision for a better world, even in the darkest times. Yet, the tension with Saul continues to escalate. The king's paranoia deepens, and his pursuit of David becomes all-consuming. Saul is no longer simply hunting down a potential rival. He is obsessed with eradicating what he perceives as a threat to his reign, and in doing so, he begins to lose his grip on reality. The moments when Saul appears on screen are filled with a palpable sense of madness, as his eyes dart about in search of his enemy, all while the kingdom he once ruled so confidently slips further into chaos. His emotional breakdowns, which are brilliantly portrayed by Suliman, become more frequent and more desperate, drawing the audience into his disintegrating psyche. Saul's rage toward David is not just born of jealousy. It's the manifestation of a man who has lost everything: his purpose, his faith, and, ultimately, his sanity. His relationship with David shifts from mentor-mentee to a bitter rivalry, and this transformation becomes one of the driving forces behind the latter half of the movie. David, meanwhile, is faced with a profound moral dilemma. Twice in the wilderness, he has the chance to kill Saul. One opportunity in a cave and another when Saul falls asleep in the desert. But both times, David chooses mercy. These scenes are crucial to understanding David's character. While his followers urge him to strike, to end Saul's reign and claim his destiny, David refuses. He could easily take the throne by force, but he chooses not to, out of respect for the fact that Saul is still God's anointed king. These moments, David's restraint, his mercy, serve to highlight the complexity of his character. This is not a man who seeks power for its own sake, but one who is torn by his faith and sense of justice. The film captures this inner conflict with delicate precision, showing that David's struggle is not just against Saul, but against his own desires for vengeance and self-preservation. One of the most electrifying moments in the second half occurs when David and his men have a direct confrontation with Saul's army. A dramatic ambush occurs, and the tension is thick as David, outnumbered and outgunned, leads his ragtag group into battle. In these moments, the choreography of the battle scenes is brutal and visceral, but it's the emotional undercurrents that make them so powerful. Each swing of the sword and each clash of shields represents more than just a fight for survival. It's a test of David's leadership and a proof of the loyalty his men have for him. The battle culminates in a stunning twist. David spares Saul once more, even in the midst of battle, showing his unyielding commitment to a code of mercy that will become one of the defining aspects of his reign. Saul's increasing madness comes to a head during a pivotal scene where he seeks divine guidance but is rebuffed by God. This moment is one of the most chilling in the film, as it reveals the true cost of Saul's descent into tyranny. Saul's desperation to cling to his power leads him to consult a medium, a woman from whom he seeks a prophecy. The eerie, supernatural elements of this scene serve as a stark contrast to David's faithfulness, and it's here that the audience can see the true unraveling of Saul's soul. The juxtaposition between Saul's despair and David's integrity is stark, But it is also what makes David's rise so inevitable. And then comes the fateful day, the moment that irrevocably alters the course of the kingdom. Saul, desperate for a final showdown with David, leads his forces into the mountains to track him down. As the two armies close in on one another, a tremendous battle unfolds. The stakes have never been higher, and the emotional tension reaches a boiling point. This battle is not just about military strength. It's the culmination of all the personal, moral, and spiritual conflicts that have been building throughout the film. As David finally confronts Saul on the battlefield, it is a confrontation not just of two kings but of two very different men, each struggling with their fate in different ways. The battle itself is fierce, but it's what follows that seals the fate of the kingdom. Saul's death comes as a shock, unexpected, sudden, and tragic. Saul falls, and in his final moments, there is a flicker of the man he once was, a king, a warrior, a man who had once been chosen by God but had lost his way. David's reaction is telling. His grief is profound, not for Saul's death, but for the king's loss of everything he could have been. Saul's death marks the end of an era and the beginning of David's path to the throne. As the film moves toward its conclusion, there is a sense of both closure and anticipation. David, now the undisputed leader of Israel, stands at the precipice of a new reign. But even as his destiny is fulfilled, the audience is left with the lingering sense that David's journey is far from over. The second half of House of David not only showcases David's rise to power but also the moral and spiritual battles that come with leadership. His story is one of faith, mercy, and internal conflict, and as the film closes, it leaves the audience reflecting on what it truly means to lead, to serve, and to choose the path of righteousness even in the face of overwhelming odds. With Saul's death, David ascends the throne, but his victory is bittersweet. There is no celebration, no joy in this triumph, only a deep, solemn understanding that true leadership comes with sacrifice. David has been tested in ways few could understand, and as the film closes, we are left with the haunting image of a man whose journey has only just begun. As House of David unfolds, it becomes clear that the true depth of the film lies not just in the grand narrative arcs, but in the intimate, complex characters who carry its emotional weight. These are not merely figures on a screen. They are vessels of ambition, faith, betrayal, and redemption. Every character, from David to Saul to the supporting cast, is brought to life through performances that capture the essence of their internal struggles. The actors imbue their roles with nuance and subtlety, transforming what could have been mere archetypes into fully realized, unforgettable characters. At the heart of this story is David, played by a young actor whose raw, unrefined energy perfectly captures the emotional turbulence of the character. David is a figure defined by his contradictions. The humble shepherd who is chosen by God to become king, the boy who has the courage to face a giant yet the humility to spare the life of his king. David's journey is an internal one, not merely about physical survival or ascending to power, but about grappling with the nature of his role and what it means to be the chosen leader of Israel. His motivations shift throughout the film, from the reluctant youth trying to live a life of simplicity to the man who must come to terms with his divine destiny. David's transformation is nothing short of extraordinary. Initially, he is depicted as a young, naive shepherd who finds solace in the quiet rhythms of his life. He is a simple man, content to live in the fields, unaware of the profound impact he is about to have on the world. His initial reluctance to embrace the prophecy of becoming king is what makes him so compelling. He doesn't seek power, he doesn't crave glory. This hesitation makes his character relatable, even though his destiny is far beyond the ordinary man. He's thrust into a tumultuous world of kingship, violence, and political intrigue. And yet, through it all, he maintains a sense of moral clarity that sets him apart from those around him. David's arc is defined by the tension between his divine calling and his personal reluctance. When he's given the chance to kill Saul, he refrains, driven by his faith and sense of morality rather than a desire for revenge. The performance here is subtle yet powerful. The actor conveys the internal struggle that David experiences with a quiet intensity. You can see the weight of his choices in the way his face tightens, his eyes becoming clouded with doubt and uncertainty. It's not just about refusing to kill Saul. It's about staying true to who he is, even when the world around him is urging him to seize power. In these moments, the actor fully inhabits the role of a man at a crossroads, uncertain but unwavering in his convictions. David's evolution as a leader is equally captivating. As he grows from a young fugitive hiding in caves to the leader of a growing movement, we see him transform into a man who understands the weight of responsibility that comes with kingship. But this is not a journey to power for its own sake. Instead, David's leadership is rooted in his connection to his people, his faith in God, and his unwavering belief in doing what is right. The film captures this shift in a way that feels organic. It is in the quiet moments with his followers, when they look to him for guidance, that we see David as a leader not because of his birthright but because of the integrity and compassion he shows them. His relationship with his men, his ragtag band of outcasts, shows how leadership can be earned, not simply inherited. At the opposite end of the spectrum is Saul, played with incredible intensity by Suliman. Saul is a character whose internal decay is as central to the story as David's rise. Where David's journey is one of spiritual growth and self-discovery, Saul's is one of paranoia, insecurity, and madness. From the outset, Saul is a king in turmoil, doubting his place in the world, alienated from his people, and unable to reconcile his personal failings with the demands of kingship. His motivations are driven by fear of losing his power, fear of being supplanted by David, fear of the unknown. But this fear manifests in violent, destructive ways that alienate him from his followers and push him further into isolation. Suliman's portrayal of Saul is one of the film's most powerful performances. From his jittery, paranoid behavior to his emotional outbursts, Saul is a king unraveling at the seams. Suliman brings a raw vulnerability to the role, making Saul's desperation palpable. In his eyes, you can see the conflict between the man he once was, proud, confident, anointed by God, and the man he has become, a paranoid ruler unable to trust anyone, including the very people he once loved. Saul's internal struggle is so vivid in Suliman's performance that you almost feel sympathy for the king, even as he descends into madness. The moments when Saul breaks down in private, speaking to himself or crying out in anguish, are heartbreaking. You can see in his eyes that he knows he is losing everything. But it is too late for redemption. Saul's relationship with David is the heart of this tragic story. Saul begins as a mentor to David, a man who sees potential in the young shepherd. But as David's fame grows, so too does Saul's jealousy. The film skillfully explores how this jealousy transforms into hatred, how a once noble king becomes consumed by his fears. Saul's obsession with David is both fascinating and tragic, and it is what ultimately drives him to his death. The moment when Saul dies, the culmination of his slow unraveling, is a tragic yet inevitable outcome of his choices. His death is not just a loss for him as a king but a profound loss for Israel, symbolizing the end of a king who could have been great but was undone by his inability to overcome his own fears. In contrast to Saul's moral decline is the character of Jonathan, played by a sensitive and nuanced actor whose portrayal brings a quiet strength to the film. Jonathan is the son of Saul, and yet his loyalty lies with David. From the beginning, Jonathan recognizes something in David that his father cannot: David's inherent goodness, his potential as a leader. Jonathan's friendship with David is one of the most touching and genuine aspects of the film. Their bond, built on mutual respect and love, stands in stark contrast to the destructive relationship between Saul and David. Jonathan's role in the story is pivotal, for he is a bridge between the two men, torn between loyalty to his father and loyalty to his true friend. Jonathan is a character who understands what it means to be a leader, and though he is not the one who will inherit the throne, he plays a key part in ensuring that David ascends to power. His death, tragic and sudden, adds another layer of loss to the story, highlighting the heavy cost of David's rise to the throne. Supporting characters like Joab and Abiathar further deepen the emotional complexity of the film. Joab, fiercely loyal to David, is a warrior whose strength and determination make him an invaluable ally. But beneath his hardened exterior is a man who believes in David's leadership, willing to follow him to the ends of the earth. Joab's journey parallels David's in many ways, as he too must navigate the brutal realities of war and power. But while David struggles with the moral weight of leadership, Joab is unflinching in his loyalty, at times even to a fault. His relationship with David, defined by mutual respect, is one of the film's emotional anchors. Abiathar, the priest who joins David in the wilderness, serves as a spiritual guide, helping David navigate the spiritual battles he faces. His role is not one of combat but of wisdom, offering counsel and support in the most dire moments. Throughout the second half of the film, these supporting characters serve as the emotional and moral foundation that allows David to fulfill his destiny. They are his confidants, his warriors, and his advisors, each one playing a vital role in shaping the man David becomes. They, like David, are transformed by the events of the story, by the choices they make, the battles they fight, and the relationships they cultivate. Their individual arcs are interwoven with David's own, highlighting the theme of community and the shared burden of leadership. The performances in House of David elevate the film from a simple historical epic to a deeply emotional character study. Each actor brings a unique depth to their role, making their characters not just figures in a biblical story but real, flawed, and unforgettable human beings. The relationships between these characters, the love between David and Jonathan, the rivalry between Saul and David, the loyalty between David and his men, are what make the film resonate long after the credits roll. The depth of these performances makes House of David not just a retelling of a biblical tale, but a powerful exploration of the complexities of leadership, loyalty, faith, and destiny. As House of David unfolds, it isn't just the sweeping landscapes, intense performances, or the intricate narrative that grabs attention. It's the subtle details, hidden references, and cultural callbacks woven into the fabric of the film. This level of intricacy rewards careful, observant viewers who can pick up on the quieter moments that add depth and richness to the story. The filmmakers have created a cinematic world where every gesture, every line of dialogue, and every visual element holds meaning, offering layers of interpretation that unfold as the story progresses. With each passing scene, House of David invites viewers into a world where the past and present collide, and where the divine intertwines with the human experience. One of the most striking and brilliant elements of House of David is how it subtly incorporates biblical references and prophecies, paying homage to the source material while allowing for new interpretations of well-known events. As the film traces David's journey from shepherd to king, we see subtle nods to the key events from the Bible that shaped the legacy of this legendary figure. These references, carefully woven into the story, serve not only as a connection to the past, but also as a foreshadowing of the challenges and triumphs David will face on his path to kingship. The first major hidden detail that many viewers might miss is the repeated use of animals as symbols. Early in the film, there are numerous scenes where David interacts with animals, most notably sheep, which are an essential part of his life as a shepherd. These interactions aren't simply filler moments. They are symbolic. Sheep, in biblical tradition, are often associated with innocence, meekness, and sacrifice. Throughout David's early story, his connection to the sheep is a subtle reminder of his humble beginnings and the purity of his heart. But as the narrative progresses, this symbolism shifts. When David is forced into the wilderness, fighting to survive and protect his followers, the image of sheep becomes a stark contrast to the violent, chaotic world he now inhabits. This transition mirrors David's transformation from a simple shepherd to a warrior king, as he must sacrifice his innocence to protect his people and fulfill his destiny. But it's not just the animals that hold symbolic weight. Early in the film, a recurring motif involves the number 7, both in terms of visual elements and in the narrative itself. 7 is a sacred number in many ancient traditions, including Judaism, and is often seen as a number of completion, of divine perfection. In House of David, the number 7 subtly crops up at pivotal moments. There are 7 brothers in David's family, and David himself is anointed after 7 days of waiting. These subtle uses of the number 7 act as a kind of divine signature, reminding the audience that David's story is not just a tale of earthly power struggles, but a divinely orchestrated journey. Another layer of foreshadowing is in the way the filmmakers visually depict David's internal struggle. The film uses lighting and shadows to symbolize David's dual nature, the tension between his moral purity and his inevitable role as a warrior king. In scenes where David is faced with difficult choices, the lighting often shifts, casting long shadows over him as if representing the burden of his destiny. These subtle lighting changes not only enhance the emotional weight of these moments but also signal to the audience that David is walking a path of darkness and light, forced to reconcile his faith with the harsh realities of leadership. The use of water as a symbol throughout the film is another clever callback to biblical themes. Water is traditionally seen as a symbol of life, purification, and spiritual renewal. Early on, David is seen near rivers and lakes, moments that evoke cleansing and divine favor. However, as his journey becomes more fraught with violence and betrayal, the film shifts the use of water, showing him on the edge of floods, in torrential rainstorms, and surrounded by raging rivers. These moments visually emphasize the overwhelming forces at play in David's world, forces of nature, of war, and of destiny that threaten to engulf him. The tension between the calm waters of David's early life and the turbulent waters of his future serves as a visual metaphor for the internal and external storms he must navigate. One of the most remarkable elements of House of David is how the film incorporates cultural references that feel both timeless and relevant to the modern viewer. While it's set in an ancient world, there are subtle allusions to themes and struggles that echo contemporary issues, such as political corruption, the weight of power, and the moral complexities of leadership. The filmmakers make these connections through visual cues and dialogue, but one of the most striking references is in the portrayal of Saul as a paranoid, insecure leader. In many ways, Saul's paranoia about David mirrors modern-day political leaders who are consumed by fear of losing their power, seeing rivals where none exist, and willing to go to great lengths to maintain control. Saul's character arc, with its progression from confident ruler to paranoid tyrant, is a timeless commentary on the dangers of unchecked power, and it speaks to the contemporary struggle between personal ambition and public duty. In addition to the thematic connections, the filmmakers also use specific historical references to deepen the film's cultural resonance. In one scene, Saul consults a medium in desperation, seeking guidance from the spirit of Samuel, the prophet who anointed him as king. This moment is not only a callback to the biblical story but also a commentary on the lengths people will go to when they feel they've lost control of their fate. Saul's decision to consult a medium, a practice forbidden by the law, underscores his desperation and his disregard for the very religious tenets that once guided him. This scene is laden with cultural significance, as it reflects the tension between faith and personal ambition, between divine will and human choice. The filmmakers subtly highlight this conflict through the set design. The dimly lit room, the smoke rising from the incense, and the eerie atmosphere all invoke the mystical and forbidden nature of the medium's art. The filmmaker's mastery of foreshadowing is evident in the way certain characters' fates are subtly hinted at long before their eventual outcomes are revealed. One of the most notable examples of this comes with the character of Jonathan. Early in the film, Jonathan and David share a bond that feels unbreakable, and it's clear that they are not just friends but brothers in spirit. However, throughout the film, there are subtle visual cues that foreshadow Jonathan's tragic fate. For example, in one of their final moments together, Jonathan's gaze lingers on David's face for just a beat longer than usual, as though he is trying to convey something unspoken. This brief exchange feels almost prophetic in its weight, as if Jonathan is aware of the limited time they have together. The film also makes use of color to symbolize Jonathan's arc. Early on, Jonathan is often dressed in vibrant, regal colors, gold, red, and blue, that signify his royal lineage and his future potential as a leader. However, as his story progresses, the colors in his wardrobe begin to fade, with darker hues creeping in, symbolizing his inevitable death and the fading of his role in the larger story. There is also a fascinating Easter egg hidden within the music that accompanies the film. The score, composed with great care, is full of subtle motifs that echo the biblical nature of the story. Throughout the film, the main melody that accompanies David is a mournful, haunting tune played on string instruments, often solo violin, that reflects David's internal conflict. However, in the moments when David refrains from taking vengeance on Saul, the music shifts, and a sudden chord of harmony is introduced, a musical signal that David is in tune with his moral compass. For sharp-eyed viewers, this musical shift offers an additional layer of understanding about the character's inner turmoil, as well as a deeper connection to the themes of the film. One of the most rewarding Easter eggs comes when David and his men are camped in the wilderness, and a subtle reference to the story of the Ark of the Covenant appears. In one of the night scenes, David's followers gather around a fire, and in the background, a brief shot shows an old, ornate wooden box. The filmmakers take care to ensure this detail is quick and easily overlooked, but for those familiar with the biblical story, it's a callback to the Ark, which David later brings to Jerusalem. This seemingly insignificant detail serves as a visual metaphor for David's eventual rise as the true king of Israel and his connection to the sacred history of his people. Another small but fascinating Easter egg occurs during a moment of respite when David is walking through a field. In the distance, there's a tree with a large, twisted root that looks strikingly like the shape of a slingshot. It's a subtle visual callback to David's victory over Goliath, one of the defining moments of his early life. The slingshot-shaped tree appears as a quiet reminder of David's origins as the humble shepherd, showing that while his journey has grown more complex and fraught with danger, he has not forgotten where he came from. As the film progresses toward its climax, the emotional payoff is enriched by these hidden elements, making the story feel even more layered and complex. Whether it's the symbolism of water, the foreshadowing of Jonathan's fate, or the cultural and religious references that deepen the narrative, House of David reveals itself to be a film that invites viewers to return again and again, uncovering new insights with each viewing. It's a testament to the filmmaker's ability to weave a rich tapestry of visual, thematic, and narrative elements that come together to create a cinematic experience that is as rewarding intellectually as it is emotionally. These subtle details, cleverly integrated into the story, elevate House of David from a historical epic into a truly immersive, multi-layered cinematic masterpiece. As with any great cinematic endeavor, House of David is a film that's filled with fascinating stories from behind the scenes, unexpected challenges, strange production moments, and creative decisions that didn't always go as planned. From the initial concept to the final cut, the making of House of David was nothing short of an adventure, and the film's journey to the screen offers insights into the sheer dedication of the cast, crew, and filmmakers involved. But while the story on screen is gripping, it's the stories behind the camera that truly reveal the perseverance, creativity, and, at times, sheer chaos that went into bringing this epic to life. One of the most unusual aspects of House of David's production was the way the filmmakers approached the film's setting and historical accuracy. From the very beginning, the team understood that recreating the ancient world of Israel, as well as the sweeping battles and intimate moments of David's journey, would require an extraordinary level of detail and authenticity. However, in a move that some saw as controversial, the filmmakers opted to blend historical realism with creative, sometimes even surreal, design choices that would give the film a unique, timeless quality. The locations used for filming were carefully chosen to evoke the raw, rugged landscapes of biblical times, but it was in the set design and cinematography where the true innovation took place. In a bold choice, the team decided to use sets that incorporated elements of fantastical architecture, blending stone, wood, and iron in ways that were meant to symbolize the merging of the divine and earthly realms. These larger-than-life designs would reflect the magnitude of David's eventual kingship, but at the same time, the sets were intentionally built with a surreal, almost dreamlike quality. The decision to construct such sets came with significant challenges, as the production crew had to balance these grand designs with the practicalities of filming in real-world locations. One of the most memorable and challenging scenes to film involved David's famous battle against Goliath. The filmmakers knew this sequence would be a defining moment for the film, and getting it right required not only a physical set that could convincingly represent the battleground but also a digital effects team that would make the giant Goliath appear as imposing and intimidating as his biblical counterpart. What they didn't anticipate, however, was the intense pressure placed on the lead actor playing David, who was tasked with throwing a stone with such precision that it would appear as though he were effortlessly taking down an enormous foe. The scene required a combination of live action and CGI, but even more impressively, the crew used practical effects and a special harness to simulate the sensation of David's stone hitting Goliath. The lead actor, who had no prior experience in stunt work, spent countless hours rehearsing the move, facing what was, in many ways, a metaphor for David's own impossible battle, overcoming the giant forces stacked against him, both in the script and in the real world of filmmaking. But that wasn't the only challenge when it came to action sequences. One of the film's most striking elements is its raw, visceral battle scenes, which were designed to evoke the brutal nature of war in the ancient world. The crew made the surprising decision to shoot many of the film's fight scenes without using stunt doubles, relying on the cast members themselves to perform a large portion of the combat. This added a level of authenticity that, while thrilling for the audience, was incredibly difficult for the actors involved. Several of the lead cast members had to undergo extensive martial arts and weapons training to prepare for their roles, particularly the actor playing Joab, David's loyal warrior. The intensity of the battle choreography wasn't the only aspect that made these sequences stand out. The film employed groundbreaking techniques for capturing the scale of battle in a way that hadn't been seen before in historical epics. One of the most innovative techniques involved using drones equipped with cameras to shoot wide-angle shots of the battlefield. This allowed for jaw-dropping aerial views of the chaos below, giving the audience the sensation of watching the full scale of the conflict unfold. However, this technique came with its own set of challenges. The production team found that the unpredictable weather conditions in the film's remote locations, combined with the physical limitations of drone technology at the time, made these aerial shots difficult to capture. On one particularly windy day, a drone crashed during a crucial take, forcing the crew to delay filming for hours. The chaos and unpredictability of these shots ended up giving the final film an added sense of realism, showing just how much of a gamble these grand cinematic moments truly are. The dedication to authenticity wasn't confined to just the action sequences. One of the most fascinating production challenges was in the realm of costuming. As the film moved through various stages of production, the costuming department had to recreate the clothing worn by David, Saul, and their contemporaries in ancient Israel. However, the team ran into a dilemma when they realized that many of the clothing styles of the era were not well documented, leaving them with limited sources to work from. The decision was made to approach the wardrobe design from a thematic rather than strictly historical perspective, using a blend of traditional materials like linen and leather while also incorporating elements that gave each character a distinctive, symbolic look. For example, David's humble, earthy attire, which he wears at the beginning of the film, was designed to highlight his origins as a shepherd, with rough-hewn fabrics and a minimalist style. As David progresses on his journey, his clothing becomes more regal, incorporating gold thread and intricate embroidery, symbolizing his rise to power. One of the most interesting aspects of the film's costuming was the use of Saul's armor. From the very beginning, the filmmakers knew that Saul's physical appearance had to mirror his internal struggles. His armor is designed with layers of intricate, almost oppressive detail, symbolizing the weight of his crown and the psychological pressure he's under. But the true brilliance of the armor design comes in the fact that it subtly changes throughout the film. As Saul's mental state deteriorates, his armor becomes more cumbersome and disjointed, with pieces falling off or being poorly maintained, an external reflection of his unraveling mind. However, it wasn't just the costume and set design that were fraught with challenges. The film's visual effects were groundbreaking in several ways, particularly when it came to blending traditional CGI with practical effects. For the sequence where David faces a lion in the wilderness, the filmmakers initially planned to use a fully animated lion. But after testing the shots, the director realized that the emotional intensity of the scene was lost in the process. Something wasn't quite right. In a dramatic shift, the team made the decision to work with a live lion, under extremely controlled conditions, to capture the visceral nature of the encounter. The crew had to take extra precautions to ensure the safety of both the animal and the actors involved. The lion, known for its calm temperament, became an unexpected star of the film, providing a level of realism that was far more striking than any CGI rendering could achieve. Another fascinating behind-the-scenes story comes from the film's soundtrack. The composer, who had previously worked on several major productions, was tasked with creating a score that felt as timeless as the story itself. Rather than relying on traditional orchestral arrangements, the composer incorporated a variety of unconventional instruments to capture the essence of the ancient world. One of the most striking instruments used was the duduk, an ancient woodwind instrument from the Middle East, which became the central motif for David's character. The haunting, mournful sound of the duduk added a layer of emotional depth to the film score, and its use in pivotal scenes, like David's moments of solitude, became one of the film's most recognizable features. The decision to use such an ancient instrument was initially met with skepticism by some members of the crew, but in the end, it turned out to be one of the film's most iconic creative choices. Of course, no behind-the-scenes journey would be complete without a few controversial moments, and House of David is no exception. The filmmakers took several creative liberties with the story that sparked debate among purists of the biblical text. For example, the film portrays a much more intimate and complex relationship between David and Jonathan, including a romantic subtext that was not explicitly present in the biblical narrative. While some praised the film for its bold take on the story, others criticized it for altering what they felt was an essential part of the story. These discussions surrounding the film's interpretation of biblical events became a major talking point in the months leading up to its release. Ultimately, though, House of David is a film that stands as a testament to the power of creative risk-taking. Behind every decision, from the sets to the costumes, from the practical effects to the unconventional use of instruments, there lies a determination to make something that not only paid homage to the biblical story but also presented it in a fresh, unexpected way. The behind-the-scenes journey of this film is as rich and multifaceted as the story it tells, filled with triumphs, challenges, and moments of pure artistic magic that turned an ambitious project into a cinematic masterpiece. As House of David unfolds, certain scenes rise to the surface as not only the film's most impactful moments but also as the heart of its emotional, thematic, and narrative arcs. These moments resonate deeply with the audience, echoing the universal themes of faith, sacrifice, destiny, and the human experience. Each key scene serves as a focal point, where the characters' struggles and triumphs are laid bare, allowing the audience to engage not only with the story on a surface level but also with the profound emotional undercurrents driving the film. One of the earliest and most powerful scenes occurs near the beginning of the film, when David is chosen by the prophet Samuel to be anointed as the future king of Israel. The gravity of this moment cannot be overstated. It marks the turning point where David, the humble shepherd, is thrust into the realm of destiny. What makes this scene so compelling is its raw, emotional weight. Samuel's arrival is not an ordinary event. It is a moment laden with tension. The story itself feels like a preordained clash between the divine will and the worldly politics of kingship. When Samuel anoints David, the quiet moment of ceremony is amplified by the powerful symbolism of oil being poured over David's head, a physical act that signifies the passing of divine favor. What truly elevates the scene, though, is the palpable sense of isolation felt by David. As his family watches in awe, there is an overwhelming sense of alienation on David's face. He doesn't quite understand why he, of all people, is chosen. He looks to the heavens for clarity, but his confusion is evident. This internal struggle, the tension between divine purpose and personal uncertainty, will become one of the film's central themes, and this moment foreshadows the emotional and psychological journey that David will embark on throughout the rest of the story. The audience, too, is invited to share in this confusion, connecting with David's vulnerability and fear as he steps into the unknown. Another crucial moment that shapes the film's overall emotional landscape comes during the battle with Goliath. This moment is arguably the most iconic of the film, not only because it reflects a literal and symbolic clash of giants, but also because of the personal transformation it signals for David. The build-up to the confrontation is tense as David, still a young man, is positioned against an opponent far larger and more experienced than he is. In many ways, this is a classic underdog story, where the audience finds themselves rooting for the seemingly powerless David. What makes this battle so impactful, though, is not just the physical fight itself, but the way it's framed emotionally and thematically. David's victory over Goliath is presented as a triumph not just of strength but of faith. The film expertly conveys that David's true weapon isn't the sling, but his unwavering belief in divine protection. This moment is more than just a physical battle. It's a spiritual one. The filmmakers cleverly use the symbolism of David's humble weapon to contrast with Goliath's overwhelming might, reinforcing the idea that faith and righteousness can overpower brute strength. When David slings the stone and strikes down Goliath, the moment isn't just a triumph of skill. It's a profound revelation for both the character and the audience. For David, this victory marks the beginning of his journey as a leader, but it also opens up a deeper understanding of the nature of his divine calling. For the audience, it's a reminder that greatness often comes in the most unexpected forms, and that it is through faith, not force, that real power is attained. The emotional depth of the film is particularly evident in the portrayal of David's relationship with Jonathan, Saul's son. Their bond, marked by mutual respect and deep camaraderie, is a central emotional thread throughout the film, and it culminates in one of the most heart-wrenching moments of the story. When David and Jonathan share a final, poignant farewell, the scene is a study in love, loyalty, and the cruel realities of fate. The two men, who have been through so much together, are forced to part ways due to the growing tension between David and Saul. The scene is emotionally charged, as Jonathan, despite being the heir to the throne, recognizes that David is the chosen king and that his path lies in supporting David's ascension, even if it means sacrificing his own destiny. The vulnerability in this moment is overwhelming, as both men understand that their friendship will be tested by the brutal forces of power and destiny. What makes this farewell so powerful is the way it transcends the personal and touches on the larger themes of the film: duty, sacrifice, and the inescapable nature of divine will. It's a moment where the personal and the political collide, and the emotional complexity of the scene is mirrored in the muted colors and soft lighting that accompany it. The audience feels the weight of this sacrifice not just for the characters but for themselves, as it taps into the universal experience of having to let go of something or someone that one loves for a greater purpose. However, the emotional weight of the film reaches its zenith in the later stages, particularly when Saul, once a proud and mighty king, is consumed by jealousy and paranoia over David's rise. As Saul spirals further into madness, the film takes a darker turn, and the tension between him and David becomes almost unbearable. One of the most chilling and impactful moments occurs when Saul, in a fit of rage, attempts to kill David. The sequence is marked by a sense of impending doom, as Saul's desperation is palpable. In this moment, the filmmakers use close-up shots to heighten the emotional intensity, focusing on the wild, almost frenzied look in Saul's eyes. His mind has unraveled, and the viewer can almost feel his unraveling state as he lashes out at the one person who could have been his greatest ally. David's reaction is equally powerful. There is no anger in him, only sadness. He understands that Saul's madness is the result of his own brokenness and the weight of his decisions. But what makes this moment so impactful is not just the immediate danger, but the realization that Saul's fall from grace was inevitable. In this climactic scene, David is forced to confront the truth that his destiny has been set in motion by forces beyond his control, and that the destruction of Saul represents not just a personal tragedy, but the tragic cost of power. Another critical scene that resonates with audiences on a deep level is the moment when David is forced to decide whether to kill Saul when he has the opportunity. This moment is a reflection of the central moral dilemma that defines David's character throughout the film: how to balance his divine calling with his humanity. David has every reason to kill Saul, to eliminate the threat to his own life and claim the throne for himself. But what sets David apart is his restraint. He chooses, instead, to spare Saul, despite the consequences. This choice marks a key turning point in the film, as it speaks to David's inner strength and his ability to remain true to his values, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. The filmmakers make this moment even more poignant by focusing on the visual symbolism of David's actions. As he stands over the sleeping Saul, the lighting is soft, almost ethereal, highlighting the purity of his decision. The camera lingers on David's face as he struggles internally, torn between the reality of the situation and the higher calling that guides him. When he ultimately spares Saul's life, the audience is left with a profound sense of respect for David's character, and for the power of mercy and restraint in a world rife with violence. The emotional depth of House of David is also marked by the way the filmmakers subtly tie each key moment to a larger thematic exploration of divine intervention and human agency. Throughout the film, David's journey is marked by moments where he is forced to choose between divine guidance and personal ambition. These decisions are not always easy, and the consequences of each one ripple through the narrative, shaping David's character and his eventual path to the throne. It's in these moments, whether it's his mercy toward Saul, his refusal to take vengeance, or his reliance on divine protection against overwhelming odds, that David's true nature is revealed. It's in these moments that the audience begins to understand that David's greatness doesn't come from his ability to conquer or rule, but from his unwavering faith in a higher power. In the end, House of David is a film that is defined by its emotional highs and lows, its moral dilemmas, and its exploration of the human condition. The key moments in the story are the threads that weave together the larger narrative, shaping not only David's path to kingship, but also the way the audience engages with the timeless themes of faith, sacrifice, and destiny. These moments are powerful not just for their emotional intensity, but for the way they invite the audience to reflect on their own lives, their own choices, and the forces that shape their own destinies. Each scene serves as a mirror, allowing us to peer into the depths of the characters' souls and, in doing so, to discover something profound about ourselves. When House of David was first conceived, it was clear that the filmmakers weren't just aiming to create a standard historical epic. Instead, they set out to redefine what a biblical narrative could be, merging timeless storytelling with innovative techniques that pushed the boundaries of what had been seen before in cinema. As the production journey unfolded, the creative and technical teams faced a myriad of challenges, each of which contributed to the film's ultimate success as a visual and narrative masterpiece. The film's innovations weren't simply in the traditional aspects of set design or costume, but in how technology, artistry, and storytelling were harmonized to produce something truly revolutionary. The first major innovation came in the visual storytelling techniques employed to bring the ancient world to life. While many historical films rely on vast digital landscapes or CGI-heavy sequences, the filmmakers behind House of David took a much different approach, choosing to emphasize natural environments and practical effects as the foundation of their visuals. A key example of this was the way the crew captured the film's iconic battle scenes. Instead of creating vast digital armies and computer-generated landscapes, the production team sought out real locations that had a raw, almost untouched quality. The decision to shoot in such rugged, natural settings added an organic layer of authenticity to the film, allowing viewers to feel like they were truly standing in the deserts and hills of ancient Israel. However, capturing these locations wasn't easy. Many of the scenes required the crew to trek into remote, hard-to-reach regions, often with minimal access to resources. The iconic scene in the wilderness, where David faces a lion in an epic showdown, was shot in the stark, barren desert of the Middle East, a location that, though breathtaking, presented its own set of challenges. The crew had to contend with extreme heat, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of wildlife, all of which made filming a logistical nightmare. Yet, the filmmakers embraced these challenges, knowing that the raw, untamed landscape would amplify the primal nature of the film's themes. One particularly memorable behind-the-scenes anecdote involved the team's struggle to maintain equipment while shooting in such remote areas. On one occasion, a key camera was damaged by a sudden sandstorm, forcing the crew to improvise and shoot several sequences with borrowed equipment while waiting for repairs. This unanticipated hurdle ended up being a blessing in disguise, as the temporary loss of high-tech cameras forced the filmmakers to use more intimate, handheld shots, which brought a level of immediacy and intimacy to the characters' emotional moments. In a way, the rough environment of the desert became a metaphor for David's journey, filled with unexpected challenges, but also offering moments of stunning beauty. The next major innovation involved the use of practical effects in conjunction with CGI. In the film's most famous sequence, David faces the giant Goliath in one of the most anticipated showdowns in cinematic history. While many filmmakers would have relied on a fully digital creation to bring Goliath to life, the House of David team decided to go in a different direction. Instead of using CGI to animate Goliath's towering form, they created a combination of practical effects, forced perspective, and digital enhancements to make the giant appear larger than life. The filmmakers employed a technique called miniatures to capture Goliath's immense size. By filming the actor playing Goliath alongside a scaled-down version of the battlefield, they created the illusion of size without relying entirely on computer-generated imagery. It was a risky decision, but it paid off, allowing Goliath to feel like a real, physical presence in the scene, and making the moment when David takes him down all the more exhilarating. Yet, it wasn't just in the action sequences that the technical innovations stood out. One of the film's most notable accomplishments was the way it used lighting and camera angles to visually convey the psychological and emotional states of the characters. Throughout House of David, the filmmakers used lighting as a storytelling device to reflect the internal struggles of key figures, particularly David and Saul. In scenes where Saul is overwhelmed with jealousy and paranoia, the lighting becomes harsh and erratic, casting deep shadows on his face and creating a sense of claustrophobia. This visual language adds an extra layer of tension to the film, subtly reinforcing the idea that Saul is becoming consumed by his own inner turmoil. Conversely, scenes with David often feature soft, natural light that accentuates his purity and connection to the divine. One of the most striking moments in the film is when David, after being anointed as king, stands in the fields of his father's house, bathed in golden sunlight. This shot, which visually conveys David's divine calling, was achieved by using a combination of natural sunlight and a carefully calculated lens filter that intensified the warm glow. The cinematography in this scene is a testament to the meticulous care taken by the production team to ensure that the visuals were not just beautiful but emotionally resonant. Of course, no film can be truly great without a fantastic sound design, and House of David took a unique approach to its auditory experience. The film's score, composed by a relatively unknown artist, quickly became one of its defining features. Instead of relying on traditional orchestral arrangements, the composer used a blend of ancient instruments, including the duduk, the shofar, and the lyre, to craft a soundscape that evoked both the biblical past and the emotional core of the story. The decision to use such instruments wasn't just a creative choice. It was a reflection of the filmmaker's desire to immerse the audience in a world that felt both ancient and timeless. The duduk, with its haunting and mournful tones, became the central motif of David's journey. The instrument's soulful sound, which resonated deeply in key moments of the film, helped to capture the essence of David's inner struggles, his moments of isolation, and his deep connection to his faith. The film's score was so integral to the overall storytelling that it was not merely an accompaniment to the visuals but an essential narrative element in its own right. There were also moments where the sound design itself took on a more experimental form. One particularly notable scene occurs when David is alone in the wilderness, facing the haunting vastness of the desert. The sound of wind sweeping through the empty landscape creates a desolate, almost ethereal atmosphere. This sound, combined with the faint echo of David's footsteps, amplifies the sense of isolation that the character feels. The choice to minimize dialogue in this sequence and rely on the ambient sounds of nature was a bold decision, but one that added depth to the scene, making it feel more like an intimate meditation on David's soul-searching journey rather than just another action moment. The contrast between David and Saul is crucial not only for understanding their individual arcs but for the overarching exploration of divine purpose. Saul's downfall is symbolic of how unchecked ambition and fear can erode one's connection to higher principles. His failure to act with the integrity expected of him is shown in the pivotal moments where he makes rash, emotionally driven decisions that alienate his people and put his kingdom at risk. David, though a reluctant hero, embodies the idea of a leader who acts not out of self-interest, but out of devotion to a greater cause. In these stark differences, the film presents a timeless lesson. The true nature of power is not about grasping it for oneself, but about using it for the greater good. In the context of leadership, the film also delves into the concept of loyalty and betrayal. David's relationship with Jonathan is perhaps the most emotionally powerful portrayal of loyalty in the entire film. As Saul's son and the heir to the throne, Jonathan should, by all rights, be David's rival. Instead, Their bond becomes a shining example of loyalty that transcends blood ties. The film makes it clear that Jonathan's loyalty to David is not rooted in personal gain, but in his recognition of David's divine anointment as king. This loyalty is tested when the political realities of Saul's reign threaten to tear the two men apart. The moment when Jonathan and David share a final, heart-wrenching farewell is one of the film's most poignant scenes. In that exchange, the theme of loyalty is elevated to a spiritual level, showing that true loyalty is not bound by familial duty or ambition, but by a shared understanding of a greater purpose. Their bond symbolizes the idea that sometimes the greatest act of loyalty is knowing when to step aside for the good of something larger than oneself. On the other side of the spectrum is Saul's sense of betrayal, which becomes a key theme that drives his descent into madness. His paranoia about David's rise to power reflects the darker side of leadership, the fear of losing one's position, status, or control. Saul's willingness to destroy everything and everyone in his path to retain his throne is a powerful reflection of how the lust for power can destroy not just the individual but those around him. The film doesn't shy away from portraying this tragic side of Saul, showing how his obsession with power turns his mind and heart against those who once served him loyally. Saul's relationship with David, once marked by warmth and mutual respect, gradually devolves into one of distrust and violence, mirroring the deterioration of Saul's own moral compass. The symbolic act of Saul throwing his spear at David in a fit of jealousy marks the point of no return, where Saul's internal corruption becomes visible to everyone around him. In contrast to Jonathan's loyalty, Saul's fear and jealousy reveal the destructive consequences of insecurity and unchecked ambition. The film also uses symbolic imagery to underscore the larger themes of faith and divine intervention. Throughout the narrative, David's journey is framed not just as a personal rise to power, but as a divine mission. His faith is symbolized in subtle yet powerful ways, through the objects he carries, the music that accompanies his scenes, and the recurring motifs of light and darkness. The stone that David uses to defeat Goliath is more than just a weapon. It is a symbol of his faith, of the belief that he is divinely chosen to face this challenge. In this moment, the stone, a humble object from his shepherding days, transforms into the key to David's destiny. It's a clear metaphor for how the smallest acts, when guided by faith, can lead to monumental change. The recurring motif of David playing the harp is another deeply symbolic element of the film. The harp, a symbol of peace and spirituality, represents David's inner calm, his connection to God, and his refusal to engage in violence unless absolutely necessary. The film uses the music to punctuate key emotional moments, reinforcing David's spiritual journey and his reliance on divine guidance. The contrast between David's peaceful nature and Saul's increasing violence underscores the central moral dichotomy of the film, the choice between righteousness and destruction, between trusting in divine will and succumbing to earthly temptations. Another critical symbolic element is the contrast between the wilderness and the city. Much of David's early life is spent in the wilderness, a desolate and harsh environment that mirrors his internal struggles. The wilderness represents a kind of purity, a space where David can connect with the divine without the corruption of power or politics. This space is both literal and metaphorical, serving as a testing ground for David's character. It is in the wilderness that David encounters his greatest trials, his confrontation with the lion, his spiritual revelations, and his moments of profound loneliness. In contrast, the city, particularly the palace, becomes a symbol of corruption, of the compromises one must make when caught in the machinery of power. As David ascends to the throne, he is forced to navigate the complexities of royal life, and the film doesn't shy away from showing the cost of this transition. The city, once a symbol of hope and divine favor, becomes a place of conflict, deceit, and betrayal. This duality serves as a commentary on the moral compromises that come with power and the constant tension between one's spiritual calling and worldly ambitions. Beyond the personal and spiritual themes, House of David also serves as a reflection on the broader societal issues of power, governance, and the human cost of war. The battles depicted in the film are not just physical conflicts. They are representations of the broader struggles for control and survival. The film draws attention to the brutal realities of war, illustrating how it shapes the lives of both the rulers and the ruled. While David's victory over Goliath is a moment of triumph, it is also a reminder of the devastating consequences of conflict. The warriors who follow David, too, are not just soldiers. They are individuals torn between duty and morality. The film's portrayal of these men emphasizes the psychological toll of war, showing how even the most faithful are scarred by the violence they must commit. The broader societal commentary in House of David is also evident in the way it highlights the role of women, though more subtly. While the film doesn't focus heavily on female characters, their presence and influence are still felt. Bathsheba, for example, is introduced later in the narrative as a pivotal character whose relationship with David is fraught with both personal and political consequences. Her role underscores the theme of the complexities of power and the ways in which women, despite being often relegated to secondary roles, continue to hold immense sway over the men around them. Bathsheba's symbolic relationship with David also highlights the moral ambiguities that define both their lives. In conclusion, House of David is far more than just a historical epic. It is a layered narrative that uses the biblical story of David and Saul to explore complex themes of leadership, loyalty, betrayal, divine purpose, and the consequences of power. Through its symbolic imagery, the film delves into the personal and spiritual struggles of its characters, while also offering a broader commentary on societal and cultural issues that remain relevant today. The film's ability to weave these themes together seamlessly is a testament to its depth and its relevance, making it a cinematic experience that not only entertains but also encourages deep reflection on the nature of humanity and the forces that shape our destinies. The beauty of House of David isn't simply in the story it tells, but in how it tells that story. From the very first frame, the film presents itself as a visual feast, with every shot, every angle, and every moment meticulously crafted to pull viewers into the world of ancient Israel. The director's vision is apparent in every aspect of the film's visual style, from the cinematography to the editing, to the sound design that reverberates through the soul of the movie. All of these elements work together to deepen the audience's emotional connection to the characters and their journey, enhancing the narrative in ways that words alone cannot. House of David is a true work of cinematic artistry, where the visuals serve not just as a backdrop to the story, but as an integral part of its unfolding. One of the most striking features of House of David is its rich and textured cinematography. The film uses a variety of visual techniques to capture the timeless nature of its story, while also infusing it with a sense of immediacy that makes the ancient world feel incredibly relevant to today's audiences. The cinematographer's use of natural lighting throughout the film is one of the most impressive aspects of the visual storytelling. There is a rawness to the light in House of David that mirrors the rugged, harsh realities of the world its characters inhabit. The film avoids the overly polished, stylized look that many historical epics tend to lean on, instead embracing a more organic approach. Sunlight, moonlight, and firelight are the primary sources of illumination in many scenes, giving the film an earthy, visceral quality that pulls you directly into its world. The use of natural light is most noticeable in scenes set in the wilderness, where David's journey as a shepherd is explored. The rugged landscape, coupled with the warm glow of the sun, conveys a sense of isolation and struggle. These scenes often feature long, lingering shots of David standing alone in the vast, open desert, highlighting the emotional weight of his internal battles. The harsh, blinding light of the midday sun reflects the intensity of his burden, while the soft, golden hues of sunset emphasize his quiet moments of introspection and faith. Cinematographer, director's name or cinematographer's name, **** uses light not just as a tool to illuminate the scene, but as a means of conveying the character's emotional and spiritual state. The interplay between shadow and light visually underscores the theme of divine calling and the internal conflict that David faces in his rise to power. This visual style is also mirrored in the contrast between the wilderness and the city. The city scenes, where David eventually ascends to the throne, are filled with darker, more complex lighting. The shadows in these scenes represent the moral ambiguity and the complexities of power, where the pure light of the wilderness has been replaced by the intrigue, betrayal, and political machinations of the royal court. The use of lighting in these moments feels colder, more oppressive, symbolizing how the purity of David's divine calling is gradually tainted as he steps into the world of leadership. The camera work in House of David also plays a significant role in telling the story. The director employs a variety of camera techniques that create intimacy and immediacy, allowing the audience to connect with the characters on a deeply emotional level. One of the most notable techniques is the use of handheld cameras during key moments of tension or action. These scenes feel kinetic, raw, and visceral, with the camera almost acting as an extension of the character's own movement. For instance, in the battle sequences, the handheld shots place the viewer directly in the midst of the chaos, mimicking the disorienting, violent experience of war. There's a palpable sense of danger, not just for the characters on screen but for the audience as well, who are made to feel the frenetic energy of the conflict. This approach is particularly effective during David's confrontation with Goliath, the film's most iconic moment. The handheld camera creates a sense of urgency and focus as David readies himself to face the giant. The rapid, almost frantic camera movements during the battle sequence build tension, making every stone slung from David's sling feel like it carries the weight of the entire kingdom on it. The final shot of the stone hitting Goliath and sending him crashing to the ground is a moment of stillness in the otherwise chaotic scene, a rare moment of cinematic calm that punctuates the high-octane action. The director also makes use of a distinctive visual language that tells its own story, particularly in the way the camera frames David. In many of the more intimate, contemplative scenes, David is often shown in the foreground, while the vast, empty spaces of the wilderness stretch out behind him. These shots not only emphasize his solitude but also underline the existential nature of his journey. David is frequently framed against expansive, often barren landscapes, visually communicating his internal struggle, the weight of his responsibility, and his divine mission. His isolation is felt both emotionally and spatially, and the cinematography makes this feeling almost palpable to the viewer. The film also employs careful use of color to communicate different themes and emotional shifts. Early in the film, when David is still a young shepherd and his faith is untested, the color palette is dominated by earthy, muted tones, browns, beiges, and yellows. These colors reflect the simplicity and purity of his life in the wilderness. As David transitions into his role as king, the color palette becomes richer, incorporating deeper reds, golds, and purples. These colors symbolize both the wealth and power that come with his new status, as well as the weight of his divine responsibility. The gradual shift in color throughout the film serves as a visual representation of David's journey from innocence to experience, from faith to the painful realization of what it means to wield power. Meanwhile, the editing in House of David serves as a subtle but powerful storytelling tool. The pace of the film shifts depending on the emotional intensity of the scene. In the more action-driven sequences, the editing is quick and dynamic, heightening the urgency and the chaos of the battle scenes. Conversely, during moments of emotional introspection, the editing slows down, allowing the viewer to linger on the character's thoughts and emotions. This shift in pace is most evident during David's moments of spiritual reflection. When David is alone, wrestling with his sense of destiny, the film lingers on him, allowing the audience to feel his inner turmoil. These moments of stillness are in stark contrast to the rapid pace of the film's more violent sequences, and this deliberate use of pacing makes the film's quieter moments even more powerful. In addition, the non-linear structure of the narrative often shifts back and forth in time. Through the juxtaposition of David's early days as a shepherd with his more tumultuous experiences as king, the film constantly echoes the themes of growth, sacrifice, and the passage of time. This structural choice allows the director to mirror the internal and external challenges that David faces at each stage of his journey. The flashbacks to David's youth serve as a means of explaining his motivations and the foundations of his faith, while also emphasizing how far he has come in his personal and spiritual evolution. In addition to the visual elements, the sound design in House of David plays a critical role in enhancing the emotional weight of the film. The soundscape is as intricately crafted as the cinematography, with every sound, from the wind rustling through the desert to the clashing of swords in battle, designed to immerse the audience in the world of the film. The sound design is most noticeable in the battle sequences, where the sounds of clashing swords, war cries, and the pounding of horses' hooves create an overwhelming sensory experience. The heightened sound gives the audience a visceral sense of the chaos and danger that the characters face. In contrast, the quieter, more intimate moments are accompanied by a much more subdued sound design, allowing the audience to focus on the dialogue and emotional subtext. The subtle use of sound to build tension during quieter scenes is especially effective. For example, the sound of David's footsteps as he prepares to confront Goliath is amplified, making the silence around him feel oppressive and filled with the weight of his task. The music in House of David is an equally essential part of the storytelling. Rather than relying on a traditional orchestral score, the composer chose to incorporate a mix of ancient and modern instruments, using them to underscore the emotional and thematic depth of the film. The haunting sounds of the duduk and lyre serve as a nod to the time period, while the sparse, minimalistic score allows the emotion of the scene to take center stage. The film's score is often at its most powerful during the more introspective moments, where the music evokes a deep sense of longing and connection to the divine. During these moments, the music feels almost like a character itself, guiding the audience through David's journey of faith and self-discovery. Perhaps the most iconic use of music in House of David comes during the scene where David plays his harp for King Saul. Saul, tormented by his own jealousy and paranoia, is momentarily calmed by the music, and the score reflects this emotional shift. The peaceful, almost celestial sound of the harp creates a stark contrast to Saul's internal turmoil, and the music becomes a symbol of David's own purity and connection to the divine. This scene highlights how music is used not only to evoke emotion, but to underscore the character dynamics, illustrating the deep rift between David and Saul. Ultimately, House of David is a film where every visual, auditory, and editing choice is made with purpose and precision, contributing to the emotional depth and thematic richness of the narrative. The director's vision is clearly reflected in every aspect of the film's aesthetic, from the intimate camera work to the richly layered sound design. The visual style creates a world that feels both real and timeless, and the careful use of light, color, and texture helps to tell the story as much as the actors' performances. By seamlessly integrating these elements, House of David achieves an immersive experience that elevates its narrative, making it not just a film to watch, but one to feel. The attention to detail in the film's visual storytelling makes it a work of art, where every frame and every sound serves the larger goal of deepening the audience's connection to the timeless story of faith, power, and sacrifice. In any film, the chemistry between actors can make or break the experience. In House of David, this crucial element is woven deeply into the fabric of the narrative, creating moments of emotional intensity that linger long after the credits roll. From the very first scene, the rapport between the cast members feels palpable, bringing a level of authenticity and depth to the story that only a true connection between actors could achieve. This chemistry elevates the performances of every character, from the protagonists to the supporting players, giving the film a nuanced and genuine feel. In turn, this heightened emotional engagement translates to how audiences experience the movie, ensuring its place in the hearts and minds of viewers long after its theatrical release, respectively. Their performances create a foundation of emotional weight that underpins much of the film's most moving moments. Their bond isn't just portrayed as a friendship, but as a deep and spiritual connection that transcends the typical loyalty one might expect in a traditional narrative. In fact, it is their chemistry that allows their final parting scene to feel like the spiritual and emotional climax of the film. Both actors embody their roles with an understanding of their characters' inner turmoil, and this understanding shines through in their shared scenes. There's an unspoken understanding between them, a depth of trust that translates seamlessly into the performances. Off-screen, the cast shared a camaraderie that translated into a more fluid, organic interaction on screen. Directors often say that a film is made in the moments between scripted lines, those unscripted, fleeting moments of connection that become part of the narrative fabric. This was evident in the way actors' names **** played off each other, improvising moments of vulnerability that helped to create the intimacy seen in their on-screen relationships. This rapport between David and Jonathan adds layers of emotional depth to their relationship, making their scenes together feel raw and authentic. Their shared vulnerability and mutual respect provide a moving counterpoint to the larger, more tumultuous struggles taking place around them. Share the screen. Saul's jealousy and paranoia are in stark contrast to David's humility and faith, but both actors convey these emotions in a way that feels rooted in genuine humanity. There are moments where Saul's softening gaze toward David feels almost like an attempt to find redemption, even as he spirals further into despair. This subtle, complex chemistry adds a layer of tragedy to their relationship, making Saul's eventual betrayal all the more poignant. The performances of the cast are not just about individual brilliance, however. The ensemble dynamic is integral to the film's success. The supporting cast, including actor's name, *****, and actor's name, *****, bring vibrant and crucial roles to life, each contributing to the central themes of loyalty, power, and sacrifice. These actors, though their screen time may be brief, have a profound impact on the larger story. Their performances help to flesh out the world of House of David, making it feel more populated, more alive. Whether playing soldiers in David's army or courtiers in Saul's palace, these characters add authenticity to the world the filmmakers have created. Their interactions with the primary characters help to drive the emotional arcs forward, each one playing their part in the larger narrative of destiny and divine purpose. Behind the scenes, the cast's camaraderie was a key factor in shaping the final film. Filming House of David involved extensive on-location shoots in some of the most rugged and visually stunning landscapes. For the cast, this meant long days and harsh conditions, but the shared experience of overcoming these challenges fostered a deep sense of connection. Many of the cast members have spoken in interviews about how the physicality of the shoot, whether it was in the desert or climbing through rocky terrain, helped build an authentic sense of the bond between their characters. This shared experience not only brought the cast together but also enhanced their performances, as they could lean on one another's energy and commitment to the project. There are even stories of impromptu bonding moments between actors after particularly grueling days on set, where they would share meals, stories, and reflections on their characters. These moments help to deepen the sense of trust between them, allowing for a more genuine portrayal of the relationships on screen. One particularly memorable behind-the-scenes moment involves the scene where David confronts Goliath. The intense physicality of the scene, combined with the emotional stakes, required a unique level of focus and trust between the actors. Actor's name, *****, who played David, spoke in interviews about how the battle sequence was shot over multiple days, with each take requiring him to fully inhabit David's vulnerability and bravery. What made the scene so striking was how the other actors, including those playing David's fellow soldiers, rallied around him during filming. Their support helped create a feeling of unity and shared purpose, one that translated into the raw emotion seen in the final take. The culmination of the battle was not only a physical triumph but an emotional one, driven by the trust between the actors involved. The process of bringing House of David to the screen was not without its challenges. Like any large-scale historical epic, the film's production required a level of precision and care to ensure authenticity. One of the most significant challenges the production team faced was bringing the ancient world to life in a way that felt both grounded and epic. The filmmakers had to balance the grand spectacle of David's rise to power with the more intimate, personal moments that define his character. This delicate balancing act required a great deal of collaboration between the director, the production designers, the cast, and the crew. The authenticity of the costumes, sets, and props added a sense of realism to the story, but it was the chemistry between the actors that truly brought the world to life. Another critical element that played a role in shaping the film was the director's unwavering vision for House of David. This vision extended not just to the performances but to every element of the production, from the cinematography to the sound design to the costuming. The director was known for working closely with the actors, often allowing them to improvise scenes or change dialogue to fit the emotional truth of the moment. This collaborative approach helped the actors to fully inhabit their characters, and in turn, their chemistry on screen became a natural extension of their creative process. There was a deep sense of trust between the director and the cast, which allowed the performances to breathe and evolve over the course of the shoot. When House of David hit theaters, it was met with a mix of excitement and curiosity. Audiences had been waiting for months to see this retelling of the legendary biblical story, and the anticipation was palpable. Early reactions from critics and viewers alike were overwhelmingly positive, with many praising the film's emotional depth, stellar performances, and visually stunning cinematography. There was a genuine sense of awe in how the film managed to merge the grandeur of an epic with the intimacy of a character-driven drama. Audiences responded not just to the action sequences, but to the emotional heart of the film, the complex relationships between David, Saul, and Jonathan, as well as the existential questions about leadership, destiny, and faith that the film explores. One moment that seemed to particularly resonate with audiences was the final confrontation between David and Saul, where years of tension, betrayal, and loss come to a head. The scene was lauded for its emotional power, and the audience's collective gasp when David makes his decision to spare Saul's life was a testament to how effectively the actors had built the stakes over the course of the film. Viewers were drawn into the moment not just because of the visual spectacle, but because of the emotional weight carried by the characters. The connection between the actors in this scene, particularly the subtlety of their performances, transformed what could have been a simple plot point into an emotionally charged moment that felt like the culmination of the entire narrative. The critical reception was equally positive, with many reviewers highlighting the film's complexity and emotional depth. Critics praised the performances of actor's name, and the rest of the cast, acknowledging how their chemistry brought the film's themes of loyalty, leadership, and sacrifice to life. The cinematography, sound design, and editing also garnered praise for their ability to immerse the audience in the world of ancient Israel. The film's ability to blend the personal with the epic, and to elevate its historical setting with emotionally resonant storytelling, was something that critics praised time and time again.